So nationally and internationally awarded journalist and conservative activist Ben Bergquam is the founder of FrontlineAmerica.com and host of Law and Border on Real America's Voice News with Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Ted Nugent, Dr. Gina Loudon, and more. His work has been featured on the Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, Fox News, and many other conservative news outlets. With over 10 years of border and immigration focus, Ben brings the truth about the reality and depths of the border invasion the mainstream media and the left don't want you to know. As major cities in the US and Europe are overrun, Ben's work exposes the routes to the invasion and what can be done to defeat it. Ben received his bachelor's degree and MBA from California University, Fresno. He's been involved in the illegal immigration issue since 2009, and most importantly, he is a Christian conservative husband and father who believes in fighting to save America and the Western world. And as Ben gets himself ready, Dale, could you start the video, please? Thank you. Ben Bergquam.
Y'all tell you, you're not going to break anything. They want to tell you what you can and can't do.
There was people there that is baptized.
This could get violent in a heartbeat, man. You just feel evil. Now you've got a prison that is focused on rehabilitation. This is one of 56 locations. You've got all these scooters, some stolen, no license plate, all parked illegally. Another historic hotels, they said over 1,000 people in it right now. That's what we're inviting in, guys. This is the reality of open borders.
You are doing this, all of you guys. Thank you.
This is an invasion. This is an invasion.
Law and order.
Thank you, guys. Absolute honor to be here. That's a little bit of what we do. I know we honored some of our veterans earlier today, and I got the honor yesterday. We didn't know we were going to do it yesterday. We were down in Mason County, and God bless the folks from Mason County, and I had a bunch of people come up to me before the event and say how much they loved us, how much they love Real America's Voice. In particular, there's one guy, Real America's Voice. I had more people come up all over the country, Steve Bannon. So I want to first off say, do we have any War Room Posse Steve Bannon fans in the house? Let me hear you. Okay, that was about as good as me asking the question. Let me ask you again, do we have any Steve Bannon War Room Posse members in the house? All right, Steve is one of the best guys I know. He's an absolute warrior for America, and he is battling, as they attack President Trump, he is battling the same enemies within that we're battling. I am absolutely honored to be able to work with him. I got to meet him about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago in California before I escaped the state. And I was just honored to shake his hand. Now I'm absolutely honored to be able to work with him on Real America's Voice News, and I'm even more honored to be able to have him join us via telephone to speak to you guys to start out tonight. Steve?
Are we going to win Michigan or not? Come on, we're going to have to fight and we're going to win Michigan. We got to put a big up. Michiganders ready to fight and take Michigan? Remember, folks, if we take Michigan, Donald Trump's the 47th president of the United States. That's what we got on the line. I'm so proud Ben's there tonight. I know you guys are going to have a great time. We're going to play clips tomorrow on the show. You guys fight on. Remember, as Michigan goes, so goes the country. So I need a lot of fight, a long fight, tough fight. Let's win this. We'll see you on November 5th.
God bless you, and God bless all of our veterans here in the house. Honor, true honor. So I'm not like your typical speaker, I think. I don't know if there's a typical speaker, but I do it the way I like it. It's kind of go with the flow. So I call it show and tell. I've got some stuff I'm going to show up here. I got some videos I'm going to show up here, and then I'll talk to you about it. We'll talk about it. I'll tell you, and then we can talk with you directly. My road to this point wasn't a direct path. I'll tell you that for sure. I told the folks last night, and I always start with this part of the story because I always want to start with the good news. Because there's a lot of bad news out there right now, and we're going to see some of it, and you guys already know a lot of it. I was born in Dallas, Texas. My parents were missionaries in Africa. They were there for 10 years. I was only there for 5. We went to California for 3 weeks on furlough, and that turned into 30 years. And I was telling the table that I moved back to America about 3 years ago. We left California and moved to Arkansas. And so it's been a nice transition back into the USA. But you look at the direction that our country's going, and you look at California in particular, and how fast it has fallen. When I was a kid, California was a great state. We had a Republican conservative governor, not Schwarzenegger, he was terrible. Pete Wilson, before him, was a great guy. And within 20 years, that state has not just lost its mind, it's lost its soul. And that's what we're battling across our entire country. So my primary focus is the border right now. But my calling, God's calling in my life is God, family, country. So it's anything that relates to the pillars of our society. It's God first, because if we don't have God, we don't have a country. We don't have the society that we want. Families are built on a biblical, godly principles, or they're built on what you see now, moral relativism, where boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and kids can be cats, and you can march for and chant "Death to America" on college campuses in America. That's the alternative. So we either have a godly nation that raises kids right, and you have strong families and strong communities, or we have what you see in just about every major city across America today. And all of this that we're going to talk about tonight is directly related back to that. But the good news part starts with a little bit of bad news. So I was in this process of getting my degrees from Fresno State. I worked in politics. Ran a couple of congressional campaigns in California, and then worked for a state assemblyman. And in that process, got sick, started self-medicating, ended up going from alcohol to drugs, became a crack addict, was a crack addict for several years. Nobody even knew it. I hid it from everybody, including my wife. I've been married 19 years this year. We have 3 daughters, 13-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-month-old. And they are the loves of my life, but I almost lost them. I was at the point where I was either going to be, the only thing I could see was prison or death. And I didn't see a way out, but I kept praying that the Lord would set me free, but that my wife wouldn't find out because I didn't want to hurt her. And it was the night that I came clean to her that I heard the Lord tell me that you kept praying that she wouldn't know, and she was the only one that needed to know. And there's a verse in Peter, it says, "Husbands, honor your wives, lest your prayers be hindered." And that night, my chains were broken, and I was set free. And I've been on this path ever since. And I just want to encourage everybody in this room. I know in particular in some areas in the north and all over our country, in particular, what's happening on our southern border. There are a lot of people that have family members that are lost. There are a lot of people that have family members that are addicted to drugs, go in the wrong direction, and you see no hope for them. I was living in a life, I saw no hope for myself, and God turned it around literally in an instant. And so I just want to encourage you guys, no matter how dark it gets, there's light out there. And your light shines, and you be that light for those people. You keep praying into their lives, you keep loving them, and you let the Lord do the work. I love that quote about how we do everything we can, but then I'm going to mess it up, but we act like it all ends up on us, but we pray like it all ends up on the Lord. And that's really what we have to do. So love those people, and just know, as dark as I lived, that God has a purpose for each one of our lives, and if we do what God has called us to do, we'll make an impact and we'll save this country. Now the bad news. The bad news. And I want to give kudos, too, to this group. I travel all over the country. I work with a lot of different GOP groups. And honestly, most of the time, I hate it. Most of the groups I meet are self-centered. And not the groups, the people. Most of it's about me, and you get people bickering about that person does it this way, and this person does it that way. And if you don't like this person, I don't like you, and I won't work with you. And this group here, these two counties, Manistee and Mason, I see some really great stuff that you don't see all over the country, and I want to applaud the leadership here, that you guys are doing it right. God has a plan, and the most important thing you guys can avoid in everything that we're going to be doing from now until November and beyond is avoid division and distraction. Now, we have to get rid of the bad ones, and I'll just say this, there's a barometer for me. If you don't realize that we're in a war already, you probably shouldn't be in leadership. If you don't realize that this is the life or death of our nation, you probably shouldn't be in leadership. And that goes for local, that goes all the way up to the presidency. Anyone in this country right now, if you are on the right, if you are a conservative, if you are a Christian, and you want to compromise, you are in the wrong position. Because we're at a place right now where it's life or death. It's life or death of our nation, it's life or death for our children's future, and potentially it's life or death for our children and their children. The enemy that we are up against right now does not care about you. They hate you. The enemy that we're up against right now, and it's purely good versus evil. This is God versus the devil, and that's what we're battling right now. And we need to understand that. Some of the videos that we're going to show will show that, but outside of that, the little petty squabbles, if we agree on that we're in this battle, and we align on God, family, country, and the foundation of what makes us the grand old party, then we should work together to defeat the enemy. And our enemy is not the guy sitting next to me typically. It's the guy who wants to kill me and my family and our way of life and our culture and our borders and our elections. All of that. That needs to be our focus. But again, I want to start with some good news. All right, so I'm gonna show you some videos and then we'll talk about them. Pete, if we can go, Dale, I don't know why I called you Pete. There's another Pete. Dale, if we can go with number 1. So this is Bergquam, California, and this is one camp in Bergquam, California. This is the scene every single day. We've been going there for several months, and every time I go there, it gets worse. Now, the majority of people that you see here are from Central and South America. You also have Middle East, but this is the area that you're getting huge numbers from China. It was one of the things that, as you watch the trends on our border, you start noticing different things.
China?
And it was very odd when you started having thousands of Chinese come across at the same time.
China?
Okay. Dale, let's go to the next one. So that's Bergquam, California. We're going to move down to Arizona. This is Lukeville, Arizona. We're still in Bergquam.
4. There's actually a 4th.
So this is camp number 2 in Bergquam, California.
And 1 now in Campo. We got a whole other group coming as we speak. Look at this. And you actually have the vehicles that just dropped them off right over there. It just dropped them off.
Those are Sinaloa cartel trucks. And these are Democrats newcomers, as they call it now.
Vietnam or China? China? You speak English? ¿De dónde son? Ecuador? China? 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 There you go, guys.
All right, next one. So I'm going to show you some of these just to set up the trend that we're seeing. So now we go into Arizona. This is
Of our
Lukeville,
trip
Arizona.
across the border from San Diego to the Gulf of Mexico.
And what you find in Lukeville, Arizona are mostly fighting age
So
men,
frustrated.
mostly from African and Middle Eastern descent. Huge numbers from Senegal.
Breaking news last night in Sonoita, Mexico. There was a gun battle between the cartels, 6 killed, over 20 injured, and it all goes back to what Joe Biden is doing right here in Lukeville, Arizona, allowing this invasion as we have hundreds of fighting age men that are invading our country because of the invitation Joe Biden has sent them. The cartels are warring over that property. They're making money on every single one of these guys, And you can hear the frustration in Border Patrol's voice. They want to be able to do their job, and right now they are not. They're being asked to break their oath because of the traitors in Washington, D.C. Pray for Border Patrol. Pray for these guys out here on the line. These guys are patriots, and they're sick of this. It's time for America to stand up and stop this.
Why you take a picture?
Because I'm media.
No, they don't do that, please. Because when you take the movie, so you sell it online.
Yeah, I'll do whatever I want with it. You broke into our country. You don't have a right to be in our country, so you don't have a right to tell me whether I can film you. You break into our country and then you tell me not to film you? This is Joe Biden's America. All right, let's go to number 4. So now we jump down to Texas, Reynosa, Mexico, right across from Hidalgo, Texas. Up to 500,000. So this is, those are all the illegals that are coming across, turning themselves in. As the left, as Mayorkas lies to you and says they're trying to do something to slow it down, they're not doing anything to slow it down. I just want to kind of set the table. This is not failed policy. This is not by accident what we have going on our southern border. This is not incompetence. This is intentional. This is by design, and it's designed to destroy this country from within. We have politicians in our country right now that are inviting the invasion of our country. And people would ask, well, why would you do that? Like this room, if you were in charge of the border right now, and you knew people were coming across illegally, you knew we didn't know who they were, you knew we didn't have the background on them, anyone in this room would say, well, of course we're not going to let that happen. Of course, well, not only are we not going to let that happen, we surely wouldn't intensify it intentionally. We wouldn't make it worse on purpose. But that's exactly what's happening. And I'll get into why that's happening, but bottom line is we have people in our government at the highest levels now who are what our founders called the enemies within. And we have people that are working to undermine this country, and all you have to do is look at the people marching for Hamas across the college campuses who are chanting Antifada revolution and communist revolution. This goes all the way down to our education system, this goes to our local city councils, and all the way up. A communist, godless destruction of America designed to destroy this country and then rebuild it in their communist utopian vision. And when I say that, it's not hyperbole, it's not embellishment, I'm not exaggerating, that's what we're up against right now. And the people that are allowing this to happen want to destroy this country. There's no doubt about that. Let's keep going. A year now. Actually, time out 1 second. So this is a different, so when we have people coming across illegally, turning themselves in, the Democrats realize, well, that doesn't look so good. So let's try to make this more orderly. So they started this thing called CBP-1. And basically what it is an app on your phone that you can be in Senegal or you could be on our southern border and you can apply for entry into our country. Most people that we're hearing about, you hear about, come across are looking for asylum, quote unquote, or refugee status, but there's a multitude of justifications that you can put for why you should be able to come into this country. And what we're doing now is simply letting them in, up to 1,500 people per day at ports of entry across America, on top of the tens of thousands some days that are coming across illegally at other points that we're apprehending, on top of a whole other group we'll show in a second. But this is the CBP-1 line at one bridge, but this is happening every single day. And what you saw on those previous videos, that is happening every single day. Same numbers every single day. Go ahead. Keep it going. Right here. Holy cow. It's long. CBP-1? Haiti? 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 CBP-1? Okay. ¿De dónde son? Cuba. Cuba? Huh? Honduras? Okay. Cuba? Okay.
Haiti.
Haiti? CBP-1, huh? Haiti? Venezuela? VP-1? Haiti? Haiti? Venezuela? Haiti? Haiti. ¿De dónde son? Venezuela. Venezuela? 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 ¿De dónde son? Venezuela?
Venezuela.
Venezuela, ¿no? ¿Tú?
México.
México. ¿Qué parte?
Michoacán.
Michoacán, Michoacán?
Cuba.
Cuba, Cuba? Cuba. That's good. So you kind of see that, and I don't know if you saw where I zoomed in on the guy when he did the horns. He's not a Texas A&M fan. There's a gang in Venezuela called Tren de Agua, and that's one of their symbols. He could have just been doing the international symbol for whatever the devil horns mean, but more than likely he was Tren de Agua. We're inviting these guys in every single day. You look for tattoos, so a lot of the work I do is not just filming the guys, it's also looking for identifiers and working with law enforcement and hopefully trying to track some of these guys down. And the reason we have to do that is because we are doing very little to actually verify who these people are. And I brought, you guys can't see it too well here, but I go down on the Mexico side and the US side and I pick up documents. These are some passports. This is Senegal, this is Mauritania, this girl is from the United Arab Emirates. She's from Guatemala, but she's got a Mexican ID. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Same thing here in Nicaragua, but has a Mexican ID. Angola, but has a Mexican ID. Got a kid from Brazil. Got medications, have money. I have bags of money from all over the world. They dump their cash as they're coming across. Sometimes it's justified when you're coming from Venezuela or from Cuba because you can't convert it. But they're dumping. I've got euros up here, I've got Canadian currency, we've got Mexican currency, and I've asked the people, why would you do that? And I get a similar response that they've been told that they have an easier time coming to this country if they look poor, if they don't have money. The other thing is, you would ask, well, why would you dump your IDs? Why would anybody? If I lost my passport and I was traveling internationally, in particular in a country where I couldn't speak the language, I would never dump my Indian passport. And we ask them, and over and over and over, we get the same answer. Well, the people that are bringing us up tell us we have an easier time coming in if Border Patrol doesn't know who we are. And the reality is there are many so-called families coming across. There are many children being brought across that don't belong to the adults that they're bringing. When President Trump was in office, I interviewed Border Patrol down in Yuma, Arizona. And Border Patrol at that point, this was when the ACLU was preventing them from doing biometrics testing. At that point, their estimate was that a third of the children that were being brought across do not belong to the adults that were bringing them across. Border Patrol called it recycling at the time. And in one case there was one child in Yuma that was recycled 13 times that they know of. That child was purchased by a man. That man brought them across the border. They acted like that was their child, and then the cartel on the U.S. side took that child and took them back across to the Mexico side. That was done that they know of with one child 13 times. I've heard of 17 times of another child. It is pure evil. And the worst part about this, when President Trump was in office and they were talking about kids in cages. Well, the truth is, Obama started separating families, but that's not even the important part to focus on. The reality is, President Trump was the most compassionate president we have had in 50 years, ever since this problem has become an issue. Yes, he deserves more than a round of applause. He deserves a standing ovation. He deserves to be in the White House. He deserves to be out of the courtroom in New York. I just came from there. I was there for 2 weeks, and that disgusting place, sitting in the courtroom. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. But what they're doing to children, what the cartels are doing to children, and what these NGOs, which is going to be the focus of my conversation tonight, non-governmental organizations like Catholic Charities, there's 9 primary organizations that lead the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the migrant programs across America. Catholic Charities, Lutheran Social Services, Jewish Family Services, the Interfaith Community, Bethany Christian, there's again 9 of them, and there's hundreds of little subsidiaries down below them. They are working in conjunction. What they're doing, they may pretend to be good, they may pretend to be humanitarian, but what they're doing, the outcomes of their actions are some of the most evil that you can imagine. What is happening to these children, the rapes and the robberies that are happening to these children, there's nothing compassionate about that. What President Trump did was the actual compassionate thing, to actually have secure borders where we know who's coming in. We know if those children, by the way, if the children didn't belong when they started doing biometric testing, that's when we would separate the children. So that way, or if the adults had committed other crimes, just like sheriff, if an adult commits a crime, you take that parent away from that child because he prosecuted. Same thing was happening. President Trump was securing the border. He was putting law and order first. That's what's happening in these places. And so when you hear people talk about this, when you hear CNN or MSNBC or the rest of them talk about it, they are liars. They know exactly what's happening. So that's why we have stacks and stacks and stacks. And this is a tiny fraction of the numbers of IDs that we've gotten. I brought this little wristband as well. Everywhere you go, there's a different story. The Gulf Cartel, for whatever reason, likes to use wristbands on their property, the people that they're trafficking. They look at them as if you were a cattle rancher, as a cow, they're a commodity. Each one of these represent a person that has either paid or not paid their debt to the cartel. And what's crazy is you actually find similar wristbands all the way from the Darien Gap in Panama and down in Colombia, all the way up to the Gulf of Mexico, Reynosa, and Matamoros over across from Brownsville, Texas. This one you can see, I have hundreds of these, I have bags of these as well, but this one I show just to give you an idea of how small that child's arm was that fit this wristband. That is what's happening on our southern border, and every single one of these policies are making it easier. Dale, if we go to the next one. So while we have these guys coming in this way, I want to show you the other side of it, the way the others are coming in. So this is right outside of El Paso, Texas. I don't know if you can see those guys. They're throwing rocks. I was droning it. They're in America, but they sit up on top of this mountain in Sunland Park, New Mexico, and they basically play Red Rover with Border Patrol. There's so few Border Patrol down there that they just take their turns and run down the hill and run into Sunland Park, New Mexico and get picked up by their coyotes and driven in. There's coyotes on top of the mountains, and then there's coyotes in the U.S. And this is happening. Now, while this is happening, we'll go to the next one. Right down the wall, and go ahead and start it and then pause it. Right down the wall, I drove, this is in a little area called Santa Teresa. There's a Santa Teresa port of entry in New Mexico, and if you continue west towards Columbus, New Mexico, this is that stretch there. I've driven this multiple times, and what's happened is, as Border Patrol resources have all been pulled from the line to process the fake asylum seekers that all of these NGOs are inviting over, because they're profiting off each one of them, Border Patrol no longer has the resources to deal with the areas in between. And this is a stretch, about a 20-mile stretch. I drove it for 2 hours. I saw at least 3 groups on the Mexico side. I actually chased back 2 different groups that were about to cross. And I cut down 7 sets of ladders. Go ahead and play it. ¿De dónde son? And I caught these guys in the act as I was driving up.
Mexicanos! Why are you coming this way?
Let's go to the next one. So I think that video cut off a little soon. I told them to go back. I drove away. They stood up on the wall, and as I drove away, they kept climbing.
Son! Huh? Mexicanos! Why are you coming this way?
The next one. Those 8 guys and 1 girl cross over right there. For a second. So I drove down the wall. I'm about a mile away. So there was a cartel guys on the Mexico side. They were not happy I was filming them. And I was alone. I'm out there alone. I am armed most of the time I'm down there. But when it's 8 on 1 and you don't know what kind of weapons they have, you got to be a little wary. And so I drove down the wall, decided to call into Border Patrol. And this is the response that I got from the Santa Teresa Port of Entry Border Patrol. Behind me, I called into the sector headquarters, and this is what they said. 8, I've got 6 climbing down right now, and there's 8. I saw 3 already run into the U.S. So you said you've got nobody out here?
Mm-hmm. And you're probably close to BSI 335.
There's a dirt road that runs into where I'm at, and that's what it's AR 430. And
430 road.
Yeah, the 430 road, and they're climbing down the ladder as we speak, about a mile east of that. Just a heads up, if you want to let them know, there'll be a group of about 8 going through. I mean, I saw another group about 2 miles back doing the same thing. So it's just wide open out here, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that sucks.
Film it.
I am.
Thank you for calling in, but we have nobody to work with, sir. Manpower is nil.
God bless you, brother.
You too, sir. Be careful out there.
Yeah, hopefully we get somebody in office that'll actually let you guys do your jobs, huh?
Heard, sir.
So I don't know if you could hear what he was saying. He said manpower's nil, they have nobody to send out there, and told me to film it. That was the response. So one thing to note on all these roads, when you have Border Patrol, and again, I was on this road for over 2 hours, didn't see a single Border Patrol agent. What you'll see when you do have Border Patrol in these areas, they have tires that they drag behind the trucks so they can see the footprints as they cross the road. When you don't have that being done, we don't have Border Patrol out there, and that's the way they actually count the so-called gotaways. So there's several ways they can count it. They have cameras in some areas, but one of the traditional ways, and especially out in remote areas, is to actually count the number of footprints. In this stretch, this 20-mile stretch, I counted outside of the 7 ladders that I cut down, I counted 15 different sets of tracks that were going across. So that's groups from anywhere from 10 to 100 people, depending on the number they're sending over. And again, not a single Border Patrol agent. As I was leaving, there was a rainstorm that was coming through. So all of that foot sign would be destroyed. And the bottom line is, when you hear Border Patrol, and when you ask Border Patrol, if you get them off the record, if you ask the big guys, they won't tell you the truth. If you ask Mayorkas, he'll lie straight to your face. But if you ask the guys actually on the ground, how many gotaways do we actually have? How many have we had since Joe Biden's taken office? How many have we had last year? How many do we have last month? The answer is, we have no idea. 0. They'll have some estimates. They'll count what they can, where they have cameras set up, they'll count the ones they can, but the reality is we have almost no idea the total number. So when you hear numbers like 10 million that they admit have come in since Joe Biden's taken office, the reality is it's probably closer to 15. And when you look at the people that we're apprehending, now some of these guys are bad guys, but a lot of them just want to come here for the freebies that they're being given. They've heard from Joe Biden telling them that the border was open when he took office, stole office, and they've got the memo. But there are other ones who have bad intentions for America, and they're coming in the same way. And just as an anecdotal story, in that same Hukumba camp that we started off with, I had a guy from Iran come up to me and tell me how dangerous this was and how bad our border security was. A guy from Iran comes to me and tells me how bad it is. And I asked him straight to his face, I said, well, what's going to prevent terrorists from coming through our border? And he said, absolutely nothing. He said, they're coming with us. Like they know they're intermingled with them. I've asked the Chinese, I asked a group that escaped the CCP. You have some people escaping the CCP, and then you have others that are being sent by the CCP. And I asked the family that I interviewed that had to escape through Laos and Vietnam to get here, how do you guys know? I said, you guys seem to be good people, but we're hearing that the CCP are sending not good people. Have you guys heard that? And they started yelling, the entire family. They barely spoke English, but they started yelling, yes, yes, yes. They're sending them, they're sending them. So it's open knowledge in China that China's sending spies. And the reality is, you can't leave China. In America, we have the freedom of mobility. We can leave this country and go anywhere we want, as long as we have a visa to get into that next country. You can't leave China if you're a Chinese citizen without China allowing you to leave. And if they catch you, like they did this family, and they don't think you should be leaving their country, they'll hold you. And that's why this family had to escape. So the bottom line again is we have all kinds of bad people coming through. Now that same Hukumba camp that I was talking about, I got a call after that. I had filmed a guy from Afghanistan, and he was kind of sketchy, didn't really want to be on camera, didn't want to answer my questions. I got a call from somebody else in the camp that said they were there with him, that his name wasn't the name that he gave to Border Patrol, that he admitted to being a terrorist from Afghanistan, and that they thought that he had already been let into the country. So I called, I've got the guy's face on video, clear, zoomed in on this guy's face, and I've got his real first name. I called the Homeland Security tip line. First I called Border Patrol, in that sector, and they said, call Homeland Security. So I called Homeland Security tip line. I got a guy on the phone, sounded like from a call center overseas, but the answer that he gave me just made me sick. He asked me, he said he could not even take the report unless he had the guy's first and last name, his date of birth, and where he was currently residing. And I yelled into the phone, I said, that's why I'm calling you! How would I know that? I know that this guy's a terrorist from the guy that was in the camp who he admitted it to. I've got his first name, and I've got a video of his face. And he said, I can't do anything. So I spent an hour and a half calling other departments, other agencies, before I finally got the San Diego field office to take the report, and apparently they're working it. Apparently they tracked him down, and I haven't heard the follow-up on that part of the story yet. But that's the reality of the security of our homeland. And I want to exaggerate that point, or just make that point a little more in your face. When I'm picking up these documents down there, I'm getting all kinds of stuff, by the way, Qurans, and we've got little Muslim prayer booklets from Mecca. Gotta love that when you see that dumped on our southern border. But this is probably these two things are the worst to me. These are official Homeland Security documents. This is a bag that they put their documents in, and their cell phones and whatever else they get. There was a stack of these. This is a U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol baggage check. There was a stack of these when I went to Yuma, Arizona the last time, and asked Border Patrol, and they said, well, we don't have the manpower to be out here all the time now, so we set these up so that they can tag their own bags. So you have illegal aliens coming into our country who are tagging their own bags, ripping this part off so that they can make sure they receive their property when they get handed off to the NGO in Phoenix, or in Tucson, or in Dallas, or wherever they end up getting sent to. That is the level of our Homeland Security. Let's go to the next one. Cartels. So this is some drone footage I shot down outside of Sassabee, Arizona. This is on the Mexico side. It's about 100 yards from the U.S. These are bunkers that the Sinaloa cartel operates in. They have AK-47s. I actually had one of my drones shot out of the sky. I don't have that video because they got my drone and I didn't get the video. So this is what it looks like in many parts of our southern border on the Mexico side. Go ahead and stop that and go to the next one. This is, so pause it for a second. So where we were, if you look down to the mountains, right at the ridge line you see in the background, that's where I was with flying the drone over the cartel bunkers. So this is a little place called Arivaca, Arizona, just south of Tucson, Arizona. This is a compound that's controlled by a group called No More Deaths. They are an openly communist group. They are funded in part by the Universalist Unitarian Church out of Tucson, Arizona, and they get a grant from the Pima County Board of Supervisors every year. Go ahead and keep flying it. So flying over this, I think this is only drone footage, but this will give you an idea of the camp. Now, I've been here multiple times. I actually went onto the camp last time I was there because there's no keep out signs. There's trails that lead directly up from where we were to this camp. And the last time I was there, the entire camp was full of the camouflage outfits that illegals use. And I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. So this camp not only harbors illegals, they are a known stop-off point. And what we have found, the work that Tim Foley of Arizona Border Recon has done down there, they actually have maps. So the guys that are coming across illegally from the Mexico side have maps that guide them to all the water points and guide them up to these camps where to get picked up, that are given to them by the cartel Coyote. So there's direct communication, direct mediation between these groups and the cartels to the illegals that are coming across. Go ahead to the next one. So these are the guys coming down the trail. So this is on the same trail that I was flying, one of the trails, there's thousands of them, that I was flying the drone over. These are the guys that don't want to get caught. These are the same leftists, so there's a couple groups down there. These ones call themselves the Humanitarians. And they go out and put water and food and all the essentials, and then these guys come and take advantage of it. So there's No More Deaths, there's the Humanitarians out of the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Greenville, Arizona, or excuse me, Green Valley, Arizona. And everywhere you've got a camera that's got illegals going across it, you've got these guys directly aiding and abetting. Go ahead to the next one. So this one, there's actually, you can see here, one of the guys has a pistol in his hand.
I think the thing that made me most upset about this whole weekend is seeing these leftist organizations that are aiding
Go ahead
and abetting.
pause it for a second. So I don't know if you can see that, but at the beginning of that video, one of the trails, the guy has a pistol in his hand, and that's really kind of minor. We've got them carrying AKs across. We've got high-value Middle Eastern targets that they've brought across that Tim Foley has turned into Homeland Security. They are bringing everything across, and there is nobody out there. If you will do me a favor, go to the last video now. And just, so pause it. So to give you an idea, illustrate just how sketchy this is. I'm down there. In this case, I was by myself with God's warring angels in my Second Amendment. And I pull up, I'm driving by the wall, and all of a sudden I go past this gap in the wall opening, and I see this backpack. And then this happens. Go ahead.
Where are you going? Oh, Agua, you went to the water? How many guys with you? You speak English? Habla inglés? No? So we got these guys right here. About to cross over. He's got his backpack. I didn't notice the backpack laying there. Huh? This is super sketchy. But this is what's happening. So you guys are witnessing this in action right now. They buy all that camouflage in Mexico, and they come through here, and now we have no Border Patrol agents. No Border Patrol agents. You guys can't come this way, not this way. That whole crew right there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So looks like he's the scout in front. He just threw a rock trying to scare me. Go ahead, pause it there. So that, as I was driving down, this was another time I was down there, and again, every time I go, people always ask me, how bad is it? And hopefully by the end of tonight, you'll understand when I say, imagine the worst you can imagine it is, it's worse than that. And that's what we're seeing. Every time I go, I see something worse. And that's the way, the reason we break news, the reason we're out in front of a lot of these, and even more than even other conservative media out there, bigger conservative medias, we go to the places, we tend to go to the places that others won't go, and do the things that others won't do. And this is a perfect example of that, where you're driving down, and what's crazy about this is I've got my gun, and again, whenever I'm on the US side and I can carry, and I'm not in an idiotic place like California, I carry, but the thing that actually scared these guys away was my camera. So I'm filming them, and the guy, you can't hear it, or probably couldn't understand it, he says it in Spanish, he has a camera, let's go, let's go. So it wasn't the gun that scared these guys, because they're all armed. It was the fact that I was filming them. And all they do is climb up that mountain, and then go down to the next one. If you can go to number 12, and then pause it there. 12. So pause it here. So this is, now we're going from the southern border now down into Panama. And myself and my counterpart, Oscar Blue Ramirez, he's in Tijuana, Mexico. We've done this trip 4 times now. We've come from Colombia, over the Darien Gap, into Panama, and then we've tried to go back 3 times into Colombia. We've only been able to do that once because of a firefight we were in one time, and because of weather and health issues another time. But this is what this camp looks like. This is an indigenous village. It's called Lajas Blancas. Tiny little camp on the edge of the Darien Gap. It's a village of just a couple hundred people, and every single day they're getting this number of people, of illegals, coming through. It's all the way down to the river, guys. Thousands, 4,000 in one day. Lajas Blancas just being completely overrun, guys. Completely overrun because of Secretary Mayorkas and Joe Biden. Democrats did this. Kevin McCarthy, what are you doing to stop it?
And obviously that was when Kevin McCarthy was in there, but Johnson hasn't done anything else, or anything either. The fact that we don't even have the balls, excuse my language, to shut down the government until we shut down the border is absolutely pathetic. The fact that we're going to send billions of dollars to Ukraine, or even to Israel before, and I support Israel destroying Hamas, but the fact that we're going to send our billions of dollars to foreign countries to secure their countries when we're allowing this to happen on our southern border, anyone on the Republican side that is allowing this to happen should not be in there. They should have the courage to stand up. Now the other side of that, I'll get sidetracked here for a minute. Hopefully you guys don't mind. I'm kind of all over the place. Got a little bit of the ADD as a kid, so I've channeled it. But if you don't mind my speaking style, that's kind of how I do it. You've got the other side of that, the Democrats. So they're basically what we have now are politicians in our country that have sold out our country. And everywhere I go, people always ask me, okay, what can be done? What can we do? And at this point, the most important thing we can do is get President Trump into office in November, because nothing's going to get better before that. And we have to get not just President Trump, yes, not just President Trump, but we have to get MAGA into the House and into the Senate, because he can't do anything without those guys. Even if he does executive orders, he can do it for 4 years, but we've seen what happens when Joe Biden takes over, whoever's next, Gavin Newsom, God forbid, or I even heard your governor, Whitmer, as on the list. You know, I mean, you think about how bad it is now, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse if we don't defeat these guys. But we have to get those guys into office. But the number one thing, once that happens, two things. President Trump, day one, reenacts the Remain in Mexico policy. That was the single most effective policy on stopping illegal immigration, I would say, in American history. All of these fake asylum seekers, everybody you see in this shot, for the most part, don't qualify for asylum. They're economic migrants. They have to, if they had to wait in Mexico or in the first safe country that they're supposed to wait in, they know they wouldn't qualify, they would turn around, they would go home, just like we saw under President Trump. That's why we saw the decrease in numbers that we saw. That's number one. Number two is when we get an attorney general in office that actually has the courage to do it, we have to investigate every single politician that supports open borders, every single politician that is on the border, and anyone who has funded, supported, enabled what we're seeing on our southern border. Because people may not want to know this, may not admit this yet, but just like we have in Mexico, Mexico is basically a failed narco state. It's controlled for the most part by the cartels and the big families, the narco families across Mexico. America is quickly becoming very similar to Mexico. We have cartels in every major city across America. You probably have cartels in the community here. I know you have in just a couple counties down. I know you have cartel activity there. Everywhere. And it's not just coming from the south. The Sinaloa cartel operates in Canada as well. So the number one thing we have to do is investigate these politicians. And anyone who has ties to foreign money, whether that's cartel or CCP or Ukraine, they first need to be immediately removed from office, and then they need to be prosecuted for traitors, as traitors of this country. If that doesn't happen, we are going to become like Mexico. Doesn't matter what we do in 4 years if we allow this to continue. Go ahead and go to the next one. So this is in the camp, Las Blancas. Now we went on the river, and I'm going to show you a little bit of Panama. I know we're winding down. Somalia, pause it for a second. So we've done this trip 3 times up the river, and every time we go, I count the number of boats that are coming down. And previously, the highest number of boats, and basically you get an idea of every day how many people are coming out of the jungle and heading up to America. The last time I had been there before this trip, the biggest number was 24 boats, and every boat carries between 15 and 20 people. So you can do the math on 24 times 15 as a low estimate. On this trip, we'll go ahead and play it, and then I'll tell you. Number 2. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Venezuela. Number 5. Last 4 have been mostly Venezuelan. That's what we're seeing again, mostly coming through. But you've got Chinese, you've got Bangladesh, a lot of Bangladesh, a lot of India, Egypt. We saw one from Morocco yesterday. crazy. All right, we're to where the river splits. Now we're going back upriver towards Bajo Chiquito. ¿Dónde son? That was number 6. Here's number 7. Number 7. Here's number 8. Number 9. ¿De dónde son? China? China and Africa. So that boat, that was number 9, China. The front half of the boat was China, the back half was Africa. In the middle of the Darien Gap. We can stop it there. So if you can see the bottom here, this video goes for 12 minutes. On this boat ride, we counted 116 boats coming downriver. And the day before, they had 160. And the numbers continue in this area, continue to grow. Now, Panama just elected a new president, and this guy, my friends that live in Panama say he's saying the right stuff. We've got to do everything he can, pray for this guy, because he is up against walls on both sides. Nobody wants to be the country that stops this, because then they become the bad guys on everything upstream from them. So if he stops it in Panama, Colombia is going to be pissed, Venezuela is going to be pissed, Ecuador is going to be pissed, all of these countries, because all these people are going to start bottlenecking in their countries. But he's talking about doing it. But that's what we're seeing every single day. And rather than, again, going back to the traders in Washington, D.C., rather than actually trying to stop this, we were there the day after. My first trip down there went with Michael Yan. A lot of you guys know him. He's been in Panama doing this, war correspondent. Just amazing journalist. He was the one who initially invited me down there. Rather than stopping this, the day that I went down there, Secretary Mayorkas had flown in and announced this new controlled flow operation. And this was over a year ago. This was well before this video was shot. And really what that was is America paying, using our tax dollars through the United Nations and all of these NGOs to grease the skids to make it easier. So it used to be you would go from Venezuela, you'd go to Colombia, you'd get stuck in Colombia for a couple weeks as you made your way across, tried to get transportation, tried to get your travel papers. You'd get to Panama, they'd hold you in Panama until you finagled your way or begged your way or they got fed up with it and they let you through. Then you'd get to Costa Rica and then so on, Nicaragua, Guatemala, so on up through Mexico. Usually it would take, if you started in South America, a couple months. Now, leaving Colombia to get to our southern border can take 6 days, going through the jungle. And the jungle can take 3 days on its own. So once you come out of the jungle, now that's fast, slow trips now are 2 weeks. So what Secretary Mayorkas has done, and Joe Biden have done, and the Democrats have done, through the United Nations, and the United Nations is really the worst actor in all of this, through the OIM and the UNHCR, they have not just made it easier, they now, we just got word on my last trip to Panama, they're starting these, it's actually through Secretary Blinken and the State Department, they're calling them welcome centers. And they're actually building in these remote indigenous villages massive compounds that can hold up to 12 to 15,000 people, where instead of having them come to our southern border and come across illegally or go through CBP-1, they're converting them on site from economic migrants to refugee status, so then they can fly them directly into our country. And now we have evidence that they've actually been doing this for several months, and most people didn't even know it was happening. So now you have 3 pathways to get here, all illegal, by the way. Everything that Joe Biden's doing, CBP-1, if it were challenged in the courts, if we actually had a justice system, he should go to jail for that. What they're doing with this, all of this is illegal, and then allowing the illegals, on top of the illegals that are coming in that don't want to get caught. Every single one of these things is exacerbating the problem. It's not making it better. Let's go to, I just want to show you this. So go to 17. We got a couple more and then I'll wrap it up and go to some Q&A. So pause it there. So this is in a little village called Nakokli. I didn't show this last night, so sorry for folks that didn't get to see this last night, but I talked about this. This is actually a sign that's put up by the United Nations, OIM, and a NGO called CARE. And this is actually what they're handing out. These are the little backpacks they're handing out. And on that sign, if you read it, it's in Spanish and in English. It's got birth control, condoms, morning after pills, and a whistle. So if you get raped, when you get raped, you can take the birth control, or you can take the morning after pill, or you can use your whistle to try to alert somebody. So rather than saying, don't go through the jungle, you may be raped, you may be robbed, you may be murdered, they're saying, here, take this. When you're raped, ask the guy to put a condom on. And if you get raped and he doesn't put a condom on, go ahead and take this pill. That's the level of evil that we're dealing with on this issue. And this was actually given to us by a woman that had come through the jungle after she made it through. Once we started filming this, we actually, in the work we've done, we've been told that we can't go back to Nicocli because the Gulf Cartel has a hit on us out there. But this is happening every day, and it's allowed to happen, and you're paying for it. Our tax dollars are funding the United Nations, who are then going out and telling women to be raped rather than stopping them. And just to give you a good illustration of that, let's go to the second to last video. This was the Darien Gap firefight. So pause it for a second. So this was on day 2 of our second trip when we were going back through the Darien. We were questioning people. Apparently we were the only journalists that have ever done this. It was kind of intuitive to me. If we want to get the intel on what's happening in the jungle, you talk to people as they're coming out and we go in reverse. So we're going in reverse flow, talking to these guys. And all day long we're getting reports. There's robbers, they're raping women, they're robbing people up the trail. First it started out 5 hours up the trail, and then it was 3 hours up the trail, then it was 2 hours, then eventually it was 15 minutes. And we're always escorted by Centerfront. It's the Panamanian Special Forces, Border Patrol Special Forces, who do actually the jungle warfare training for our special forces. Awesome guys. These guys had just been robbed, and so they thought we were there to rob them again. A lot of times the guys that rob them dress up in camo, and we're there with guys in camo and guns. So you can see the guy putting his hands up. Go ahead and play it. Ask him.
Nos robaron, ellos robaron.
Y anoche nos robaron a mí. Anoche fueron 4. Y ahorita 3.
¿Qué tan larga distancia está?
Ahorita como 15 minutos. No sabemos por qué se la llevaron para monte, para allá para la montaña, mano.
So they're telling me the number of guys.
Three.
One, the first guy said there's 4 guys. This guy says there's 3 guys. He's got guns.
My money.
Yeah, you speak English?
Yeah, that's I'm going.
Where are you from?
From Eritrea, East Africa.
Ethiopia.
East Africa. Guys was well armed. That's when that with the what they call the Exmoda.
Yeah.
And then they shifted us somewhere there along the road, and they asked us what we have to give them what we have.
She had just been raped.
Todo va a estar bien. Te los van a parar. ¿Qué te hicieron? ¿Te quitaron la ropa? ¿Te violaron?
Sí, la de la que todos nosotros.
No, pero la robaron completo.
Le abrió su parte y todo, sí.
¿Todo? ¿Te abrieron tus partes?
Sí. Él la puso en ese unido.
That's the
No
guy
tiene
that
cabello
is
amarillo, pero tiene los años.
violent, raping, abusing the women.
Ah, sí, ayúdame,
They made her get naked and open up her legs and get in the middle of everybody and show everybody how she was.
Los niños van traumados, le dan golpes a
Kids
su
are
papá delante
traumatized.
de ellos.
¿Cómo está bien?
De aquí para adelante, puro guardia.
Sí, de aquí para
Puro
adelante.
guardia. Para por lo menos salir al comienzo, ni siquiera para uno. Ni siquiera para uno. No dormimos, no mojamos.
This is what you're doing. This is what the so-called compassionate open borders left is doing to these people. So all the reports we've been hearing all morning, we've got possibly 3 armed robbers on the trail. It sounds like they may be part of the paramilitary FARC group out of Colombia. We're not sure yet. Part of the group, the Centerfront group, has gone ahead. One of the other half of it has gone across the river to flank them in case there's any lookouts on that side. And we're waiting back here with one of the guys at base camp. They got him. They got him. We got him. Got him in here. Yeah. See. They've got at least 1 or 2 in here. That's good.
So they ended up catching 2. They killed 1, captured 2. Apparently, one other one may have gotten away in this one. They were actually in the process of raping another girl when they came up on these guys. The guy that ended up getting shot and killed. We found out later. Go ahead and pause it. We found out later this was the Gulf Cartel out of Colombia, and basically what they do on their off weekends is they go and rape and rob and murder people in the jungle because there's nobody typically out there. So this was one group. We found out later there was another group on top of the mountains. We also had reports from guys saying they've got long arms. So these guys had a shotgun, they had a rifle, and they had several pistols. We had reports that they had AKs and grenades. So you don't really know what you're walking into. The next week, they went up and took out that other group. But within a couple weeks, there's another group in there and another group in there. It's one of the most remote, dangerous places on the planet right now. And because of what we're allowing, and I'm not even going to get into the environmental disaster, you can basically find your way out of the jungle by the line of trash, starting from Colombia all the way through. There's an estimated 60,000 tons of garbage. And the very same people that are throwing paint on our priceless artwork, screaming about climate change, aren't saying a damn thing about what we're doing to one of the last remote jungles, pristine jungles in the world. They really don't care. All they care about is advancing their agenda. So that's happening. And I want to end with what's happening in your cities. If you will go to number 20, video 20, the illegals outside of ICE. So this was in New York just a couple weeks ago. So this is the line outside of the ICE office in New York City. It runs for several blocks. And it's like this every single day. Go ahead, stop it there. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So just break it down. We've got an open border. We don't have a border right now. We don't have border security right now. We don't know who's in here. We don't know what their intentions are. We know that an attack or attacks are imminent. It's just a matter of when. We could stop it, and we choose not to. The people in power right now choose not to. And until we take this country back, until we get leadership in there, until we get President Trump back in there, and a House and a Senate that have the courage to do what's needed, this is going to continue. It's up to everybody in this room to stop it. And I made a comment about you guys working well together. You know, you're running for Senate. You said it. It's always said this is the most important election of our lifetime. And it sometimes starts to sound cliche. But I truly believe that it is. We're at the crossroads. There's, some of you guys know about black holes. We're very close to the event horizon of the black hole that will suck us into the inevitable death of this nation and the death of millions. And all you have to do to look at an example is Venezuela. They were one of the most prosperous countries in South America, and within 20 years they turned into a third world hellhole because the elections were first stolen, and they didn't stop it, and then communist socialists took over. They took over the justice system. They politicized, they weaponized the justice system. They took out their political opponents, and now there's no way to get that country back without massive bloodshed. And if we don't stop that in this election, I'm very concerned about the direction our country heads and whether or not it can be corrected. Now, I am a believer. I believe God can change all of this. I believe God acts and miracles happen when miracles are needed. And you look at historically, every time God acted in the Bible, it was when it was outside of our control. And we're at a place right now where we absolutely need a miracle in this nation. But, as was stated earlier, until that happens, we've got to work our asses off, like our lives depend on it, like our children's lives depend on it, like the future of this nation depends on it, because it 100% does. We're gonna do questions. You want a mic?
Okay, I'll wait till then.
Do you want to bring a mic? Or just go ahead if you want to say it.
I want to say that view of you hell, in the weeds, which is one of the last things you showed last night, you are a hero. You
If you have questions, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to do it. And honestly, to all the veterans out here, to law enforcement that put their life on the line every single day, not knowing if they're going to come home. Like I said, I get to do what I do because of what you do. And to all the veterans out there, my freedom is paid with blood. And I just pray that we don't have to sacrifice too much more to keep it. But thank you. If you have a question, the microphone is right over there. If you guys will line up over there.
Ben, first off, thank you. I've been to the border 5 points of entry, and Dr. Pete Chambers and the sheriff in Kinney County. When I asked them, how do you guys do this every single day, I'd be in jail because I'd go postal. But one of the things they said is that they could close the border and fix the problem in a week.
Yeah.
They said all they would need to do is get an order from Biden to close the border. They'd go into Mexico and stop the cartel. What say you? What would it take? I mean, we see it, we're enraged at it. I saw it, it looks like a refugee camp that I've seen so many places overseas.
Yeah.
What say you? What will it do now? I mean, November is, yes, we want to get Trump in, but with your experience, what would you say needs to be done now to close that and fix the problem at the southern border and our borders here?
Well, it could be done. It could be done in a week. The first thing, as I said, is enact the Remain in Mexico policy. You brought up another point. We have to immediately list the cartels as terrorist organizations, because they are, and treat them as foreign combatants and go in and take them out. Now, when you talk about what that actually means militarily, there is not a huge appetite for doing that, because you're talking about going into a foreign country and killing targets, but that's what needs to happen. Will they actually do that? I don't know, but number one, you have to stop the bleeding. And the way you stop the bleeding is you stop the people from coming in, and that's why Remain in Mexico being implemented and actually enforced. You have to tell Mexico, the reason Mexico even allowed that to happen was President Trump went in and said, you're going to hold these people here, we're doing this process called Remain in Mexico, I'm paraphrasing, and you're going to hold them here until they get their process date. And Mexico initially said, no, we're not. Why would we ever do that? And Trump, being the negotiator that he is, said, well, you're not going to get any of the funds that we send you. And immediately, the president said, oh, we'd be happy to take those people. And just like Guatemala, when we said we're going to repatriate these people, first they said, no, you're not. And then Trump said, well, we're going to stop sending you foreign aid. And they said, we'd be happy to take these people. So that's number one, is we stop the bleeding. But number two is twofold. I think part of it is labeling them terrorist organizations and going after them as terrorists, and then also finding out who their allies, as I mentioned earlier, doing the investigations and holding the people that are directly aiding and abetting the cartels in America accountable for the treason that they've committed. And then the other part to that, and I didn't get into it too much, are the NGOs. And I want to talk a little bit about this, and then I'll come to the next question. NGOs are making, there was just a New York Post article. It's funny, we were talking about it yesterday, and somebody got up and said, what do you mean the NGOs are profiting off this? The NGOs are making billions of dollars on this. And some of them may have started out with good intentions. You know, I mentioned some of them. I know we've got some good Catholics in the room. I'm sure we've got some good Lutherans in the room. I'm sure we've got some good Jews in the room. I don't know about Universalist Unitarians. I don't know if there's any good ones of those. But I'm sure there's some good people of most faiths in the room tonight. You need to understand that if you're a part of one of those churches, it's your duty, it's your job to go to the bishops in the church or go to the clergy or the leadership in the church and say, this needs to stop. I do not want my money going to this. But the reality is, it's not even your money. It is your money. If you're tithing, it's probably not your tithe. Most of these organizations now rely almost entirely, their budgets rely almost entirely on grants from the federal government, from we the taxpayers. So we're all paying for it. But just to give you an idea, this article that just came out yesterday, the three major child trafficking organizations, they call them unaccompanied minor transportation organizations. One of the major ones is called Southwest Key in Texas. The three major groups together annually have a budget from the federal government of $2 billion. Southwest Keys has over $500 million. It's closer to $1 billion. The CEO of that so-called nonprofit makes over $1 million a year. So this is a massive new industry. I coined it the Democrat illegal alien industrial complex. This is apparently the only thing Democrats can run, and they're making millions, billions of dollars doing it. And what happens is that money comes out of the federal government, it goes into these NGOs. Those NGOs work on both sides of the border. They tell the illegals that are coming up how to fill their paperwork out, what to say when they come across, why to dump their documents. When they get in, they're handed off to that NGO. The NGO then drives them up. Sometimes if they're unaccompanied minors, they're transported to a person. Now, Joe Biden quit doing the DNA testing on these people. He quit doing under President Trump. When we handed off children to the so-called parents or the adults that we were handing them off to, President Trump not only did background checks on the person they were being handed off to, he did background checks on everybody in the household. Now they are doing no background checks on anyone in the household, and oftentimes they aren't even doing the background checks on the people they're handing it off to. So when you hear 85,000 missing kids, we don't know where they are, the number is much, much higher than that. This is child trafficking at a level we've never seen before. This is human trafficking, sex trafficking, modern day slavery at a level we've never seen before. And it's all sanctioned by the federal government, and these organizations are complicit in that process. So if somebody asks you, how are these organizations making money? How are they profiting? That's what it is. And again, some of the people working in them may have good hearts. They may think they're doing the right thing, but the bottom line is they're doing the devil's work. That's it, guys. God bless you guys. Thanks for having me.